Hello and welcome to AI news that you should know about. I'm your host, Ashley Coffey.
And I'm Daniel Hill. Here's how this works. Every week, in about 15 minutes, we cover the top AI news stories that you need to know about. This week, we'll be talking about how vibe hacking is now a top AI threat. We'll talk about how Elon Musk's XAI is suing Apple and OpenAI over AI competition and App Store rankings. We'll talk about how 911 centers are so overstaffed, they're now using AI to answer calls. And we'll be talking about some new features from Google Translate designed to take on Duolingo with new language learning tools. Let's get into it.
We'll be covering all of those topics today on our show and a little bit more. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Let's dive in. So, today we're going to do something a little bit different to commemorate the amazing and exciting engagement of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. If you're listening to this, know that I am wearing an orange blazer right now to commemorate. And if you are also a Taylor Swift fan, you might notice that we will be using some potential lyrics and themes in between our reporting today. So, if you're into that, awesome. If you're not, I'm sorry, but buckle up, come along the ride. All right. First up, in our wildest dreams, vibe hacking is now a top AI threat. If you're not familiar with vibe hacking is essentially starting to create something and letting the prompt of suggestions of the AI or whatever automation tool that you're using give you what those next steps are. So think of when you're typing on your phone a text and it wants to autocorrect, that is essentially vibe coding. You're letting the computer make the decisions on what happens next. So, this is very interesting for everyone to hear. And it's a really good example of how agentic AI systems are being weaponized. And this is the first lines of Anthropic's new threat intelligence report that they released yesterday, actually, which details a wide range of cases in which Claude and likely other leading AI agents and chatbots are being abused, which I thought about this. Well, it's a matter of time. And what I want to say specifically is one sophisticated cybercrime ring that Anthropic recently looked at. It disrupted the use of Claude Code, Anthropic's AI coding agent, to extort data from at least 17 different organizations around the world in 1 month. The hacked parties included healthcare organizations, emergency services, religious institutions, and even government entities. Quote, if you're a sophisticated actor, what would have otherwise required maybe a team of sophisticated actors, like the vibe hacking case, to conduct, now a single individual can conduct with the assistance of agentic systems. And that is a quote from the head of Anthropic's threat intelligence team. And this is reported from Verge. And they added that Claude was executing an operation end to end. So AI served as both a technical consultant and as an active operator, enabling attacks that would be more difficult and time consuming for individual actors to execute manually. But this dark web world and these ransoms exceeding $500,000 per Anthropic are some of the most sophisticated use of agents for cyber offense that some of these people have ever seen before. This is just the beginning. It's not done yet. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
This is a fascinating one because this article mentioned that these tools enable non native English speakers to write persuasive, complimentary messages in order to gain the trust of victims in the US, Japan, and Korea and ask them for money. Historically, I would say a lot of times when I get a spam message, I look at the grammar, I look at the sentence structure, I look at the spelling, and I say, okay, this is spam. This was written by someone who's not a native English speaker. It's not one of my friends or someone that I've ever interacted with before. But now with these AI models, that suddenly is not a marker that you could necessarily rely on to know whether or not this is a bad actor or someone who is trying to scam you or not. So I think this is only going to get worse. And it's fascinating to me also that the hackers are able to say, okay, AI, if I had access to this, what could I do next? Now that I have a person who's willing to email me back and have a conversation about pleasantries, how can I get them to give me their bank account number, right? Like you're asking the AI for the next steps in that relationship or in that scam. And I think that's very concerning that these tools are available to do it that way.
Absolutely, and it's really targeting a certain segment of the population who are older and they have more money available to them, more time available to them, and they're being targeted because people know that they're easy targets. I was talking to my CPA, and he mentioned, a client who is no longer, in this world, who passed away a long time ago. They were caught up in some of these scams, and they ended up sending, I think, $300,000 to someone that was claiming to be Gloria or John and all of that. So what I'm getting at is it's more important now than ever to help promote digital literacy and help share strategies and tactics for not being manipulated and, swindled into a thing that you don't want to be into. I usually tell people if you get a call from someone, hang up and call them back because AI agents can now replicate voices of your grandchildren, of your loved ones, and use these urgent situations to get you to send them money. So just really be careful to everyone out there who is not just using AI, using technology in general. We have definitely seen a massive increase in fraud just this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the theme of Taylor Swift, the segue here in our anti-hero era, Elon Musk's XAI sues Apple and OpenAI over AI competition and App Store rankings. So, if you've been looking at the headlines of tech recently, you probably have seen this. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup, XAI, sued Apple and ChatGPT maker of OpenAI in U.S. federal court in Texas on Monday this week, accusing them of illegally conspiring to thwart competition for artificial intelligence. Apple and OpenAI have locked up markets to maintain their monopolies and prevent innovators like X and XAI from competing. End quote, the lawsuit says. Interesting here, Apple, in partnership with OpenAI, has integrated ChatGPT into its operating system for iPhones, iPads, and Macs. I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to say this is nothing new. When iPhones came out, there was an exclusive agreement with Yelp to integrate Yelp into the system, as a lot of other things too. Google Maps, Apple Maps. This is nothing new that we're seeing. It's just like, in my opinion, I feel like this is going to be dismissed. I don't think there are grounds here. I just think he's trying to use his money and power to get what he wants. But I don't think that they're stifling competition. That this is business and this is how business works. He should play by the rules. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. This seems like that it's a play for attention. And the lawsuit said, quote, if not for its exclusive deal with OpenAI, Apple would have no reason to refrain from more prominently featuring the X app and the Grok app in its app store. End quote. I think the apps would be featured more if, number one, the team paid for that, if the X team paid for that level of advertising or agreement, or alternatively, the app was so good that everyone just talked about it because it was that great. And if it's not, okay, you can either fix the problem by making the app better or paying to have it promoted, paying to have some kind of agreement with Apple. If you don't want to do those two things, making a lawsuit about it doesn't seem like the solution at all. That's my take. What do you think, Ashley?
I 100% agree. 100% agree. And it's annoying to see everything go into a lawsuit. No kind of diplomatic conversations or negotiations happening. It's just immediately 0 to 10 really quick, which I don't feel is productive for anyone or anything. We'll see what happens with this. I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse and we'll be sure to bring that to you as new updates come out. Well, we're going to take a quick break where you can shake it off. But when we come back, we'll be talking about 911 centers are so understaffed, they're turning to AI to answer calls, and Google Translate takes on Duolingo with new language learning tools.
Welcome back. If you were concerned that we were never, ever, ever coming back together again, here we are. Let's continue with our stories. In the next one, I'm the problem, it's me could easily be described as the motto of America's overburdened 911 call centers. The call centers that handle 911 calls are so understaffed that now they're using AI to handle calls. TechCrunch had a really good article talking about a company called Aurelian. They started out doing automated appointment bookings for hair salons, but they realized some of the problems that happen when you call a non emergency phone line for the police department or emergency services in specific localities where you could be waiting on hold for a long time. Now, it might be something simple. You found a lost wallet. there's a parking problem or you have some other kind of non emergency question, how should those calls be handled? Well, right now, 911 operators are handling the burden of those calls, but they should be focused on emergency matters and making sure that people who are in emergency situations get help as soon as possible. So this company Aurelian is offering a AI voice assistant that helps 911 call centers offload non-emergency call volume. They handle things like noise complaints, parking violations, where a police officer doesn't need to be responding right away or person needs to be sent at all to the scene or to the location. If there is a real emergency, those calls can be transferred to a human dispatcher. If not, it'll collect the key information from the person who's calling and create a report or some other kind of follow-up action to happen. What's really interesting about this is it's now been deployed in more than a dozen 911 dispatch centers and some in cities like Chattanooga and Kalamazoo, Michigan. I think this is a really interesting way to approach a problem, which is not having enough 911 operators, with a solution that helps to classify the urgency or non urgency of the problems. Ashley, what do you think?
I'm so glad you pulled this, Daniel. I love it. And specifically, I'm going to make sure everyone knows this is for non emergency uses. If it were emergency uses, I would have very different opinions. But because it's non emergency use, I do think it's a really good way to try to be the first line of communication with someone who calls in. I myself, whenever I call in, I will call 911 and ask to be transferred to the non emergency line, or I will look up in the specific area that I'm in to see if I can find a direct non-emergency line number. I've been to Chattanooga, Tennessee myself. This is a perfect place for it to be deployed because it's a small town, low income areas, very disparate access to internet and connectivity. So I'm interested to see how this works in the long run because you and I both know that everyone hates talking to AI chatbots whenever we're on hold to listen to the next customer agent. But this is great because if you set it up to capture the name of the person, the contact information, the detailed information about what they're calling about, that's going to save a lot of time in the long run. You're going to get your information immediately, and it's kind of like you're resetting the clock with the person that's calling, so they feel seen and heard, and you have a data point to come back to say to the person, "Hey, we got your call, we fixed it," or whatever.
Especially if that call is tracked and then you can find out what happened later if you want some kind of follow-up. I think personally, I also don't enjoy talking to an AI agent in a vocal manner back and forth like that, but I much prefer that to leaving a voicemail and never getting a call back and never knowing what happened. At least there are steps being taken. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Interesting that they're in, Snohomish County, Washington, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Kalamazoo, Michigan. I wonder why they chose those 3 first, but wow. Thank you for sharing this, Daniel. It's super interesting, and I hope more people start to see innovative use cases. It's interesting that this company started out as a salon, like they were trying to solve a problem for a salon and realized, oh, this will apply to a lot of other things too. And I encourage people to start thinking like that as well. Like the Swiss Army knife. What are the problems we can solve specifically with this?
Yes, that's exactly it. And I love that kind of thinking. Let's move on to our last story. The phrase, you belong with me, could sound a lot better if you could say it in a different language. Google Translate is taking on Duolingo with its new language learning tools built into the app. This is an AI powered experimental feature in Google Translate to help you learn a new language. And this app is now including the tools for both beginners to start to learn and advanced speakers who want to improve their vocabulary. This is going to be through tailored listening and speaking practice sessions that adapt to the user's skill level and whatever your unique learning goals are. If you have a trip in a couple of months, it can work toward that. This is super interesting to me because Duolingo has been such a huge brand name. Their marketing efforts have been fantastic, but Google Translate is universally known as the quickest way to get what you are trying to say into a different language. So I really
Mhm.
love this inclusion. Hey, let's take it a step further. Ashley, what are your thoughts?
Well, one, thank you for pulling this. I myself am a Duolingo user, been following the company for a long time. They have a great episode on how I built this with Guy Raz on how they built the company. I like competition, so that's good because for the longest time, Duolingo has really been the gold standard because they have it ready. But we will see that the head of content and social media just left and joined DoorDash. And a large part of their wild success was due to their social media virality. So now with her gone and with Google stepping up, I do think they're going to see some problems later this year in competition. But also I want to pull a thread here is that it seems to be this is going to be a part of the Google Workspace subscription or available for free based on what I'm looking at, which that's a huge also benefit because Duolingo is a cost. So this is nice. And also business owners that I talk to, like, they want to add new tools, but sometimes it's about looking at the tools that are currently within the systems you currently pay for. Like Google Workspace has a ton, so I recommend people like look at that before you look at other things. And this is a good example. I'm glad Google is innovating, and you're right. I remember working at the Apple store in 2010, and we would have non-English speakers come into the store. And because I was the only one who was willing to use Google Translate, I was always the one that's like, Ashley, we need you. And I'm like, all I'm doing is using Google Translate and a little bit of confidence. And they're like, no, we need you. So I'm glad that Google is stepping up and like taking us to the next level. What do
Yes.
you think?
The article mentioned that the feature is going to be available first for English speakers who are practicing Spanish and French, and for people who speak Spanish, French, and Portuguese who want to learn English. So I think that also includes a large population of the world right off the bat with, four major languages. So it's nice to see that people are going to have an opportunity to learn English and English speakers will have an opportunity to learn other languages because I will say in the United States, we can be a bit centralized and not so much thinking that we need to learn other languages. So I like that as well.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see how this progresses and what the UI is like. I really see where the differentiator comes in with these is what is the user experience and the interface like, because that's where some tools like Duolingo excel. And there's always going to be kind of a trade off there. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. That is it for our AI news that you should know about for this week. And now a fun section we've been doing. What is the best thing you used AI for this week? Ashley, would you like to go first?
I would like to go first. Thank you. So I'm a business owner and I'm a team of one going into like 2 years this month, actually, of running a full time business. And it can be overwhelming. So sometimes because I'm doing a lot, I'm wearing a lot of hats. I'm either on the road or in a client's office or responding to emails. So all that is existing. And I decided to lean a little bit into my comment browser and help it be my manager, my business manager. So I said, I need you to be my business manager. And I just left it at that, and it knew what the assignment was. It was like, "All right, here's your lineup of what I think you need to do based on what you've shared with me." And in that moment of overwhelm and analysis by paralysis, I felt a little bit of relief to start small and then build on that momentum. So the comment browser was able to look at my emails because I said, "Hey, look at my email inbox, prioritize what's most important to me, and here's what I need to accomplish by the end of today." Because in my ADHD side quests, it's easy to get time dilation. So, what about yours? What is your use case for this week?
I want to ask about the comment browser, but I used Gemini today or this week for analyzing a recent MRI that I got. I put the
Whoa.
results in and I asked it to take a look at the findings, see what recommendations it has for me, what kind of doctor I should go to, whether or not the results that I saw from the MRI are related to some other problems that I've been dealing with. And it gave me back cohesive answers for all of that, gave me the recommendation for the doctor. It was a very specific kind of doctor I've actually not heard of before, but all of
Hmm.
this, I never would have figured out how to get this information on my own. I could have Googled for years and never come across this exact recommendation that it gave me. So yeah, that has been mine this week. Take whatever complicated either medical report or other thing you don't understand and to the AI and say, summarize this for me or give me recommendations or explain this to me like a 5-year-old and see what comes back because you might be very surprised by what happens.
That is so fascinating, Daniel. Thank you for sharing that. It's nice to see people use like real cases for AI. One of my students from a long time ago, she was a biomedical engineering student, and one of her class assignments was to go get a CT scan and bring that CT scan into a 3D environment and create a three-dimensional at scale model of your brain based on your CT scan. And they use a little bit of AI to do that, but it's like Imagine doing that now with what we currently have available. I'm sure it's 1,000 times easier,
Right,
but it
right.
empowers you as a patient and as a human to feel a little bit more empowered about what's going on in your body.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you can find links to everything we've discussed in the show notes. You can connect with us on social media. We'd love to hear what you think of the show and how we can make it better. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Daniel Hill Media.
And thank you for listening to today's episode of AI News that you should know about. If you want more tech talk, you can find me on my other podcast called Coffee and Code. Anywhere you get your podcasts, that's COFFEY and CODE code. We're unlocking the code of demystifying emerging technologies so anyone and everyone can be involved. But also, if you're curious about taking the next step of implementing AI in your business or you're just not quite sure where to start, I am the CEO of Coffee and Consult, a small and medium sized consulting firm dedicated to helping businesses leverage technology for efficiency and profitability. But reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you all for listening and come back next week for more AI news that you should know about.